What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the pride of Wexford, Brian Moore, today before his bout with Otto Rodrigues up at 145 at Bellator Dublin. Brian, how are things? It's usually like a couple of weeks before the fight or the week of the fight I'm talking to you, but we're 4 months out from it now still. And
4 months.
Obviously it was announced the other day, so I wanted to get you on to talk. It must be good. It must be an exciting time now before you get into the real camp for the fight. Before you actually get into even maybe thinking about the fight itself. This must be the fun time, where it's all getting ready for it.
Yeah, outside of camp, usually I love being in camp, but I'm a martial artist, and I think you learn more outside of, you put things together differently. Camp is about refining, so this is all an exciting time. We're putting a lot of groundwork in, but we're just focusing on me, which is great, rather than focusing on an opponent 8 weeks out. So it's always an exciting time, isn't it? When you're doing what you love. So just buzzing for this matchup, man.
I actually did a podcast about that came out today as we were recording, about fighters, the way they prepare outside saying outside of the fight even, but then inside of the fight, or the way they fight outside of the fight and inside of the fight in terms of tactics. What do you do when you're preparing? Are you preparing as the best martial artist you can be, where you're looking at all the other fights, seeing, maybe you're watching the Makachev Volkanovski fight, you see something in it, maybe, okay, I could implement that in my game, but then you have to look at your opponent and stuff as well. It's can I implement that in my game? I'll have to do this, and this. How do you get that balance between the two of those things? Because you want to be the best martial artist you can be, but you also want to win your upcoming fight.
Yeah, that's why it drives me nuts, especially with younger fighters that turn up for 8 to 10 weeks out before a fight and then they disappear. You know what I mean? Because your learning goes on in the gym outside of camp, basically. Now, in camp, you're still going to learn, but it's a lot of refinement work. You're focusing on yourself and the best game plan that you can implement versus your opponent, and obviously, try to train to exploit his weaknesses and to, try to figure out his strengths. So you do an awful lot of the learning, and a lot of the enjoyment is outside of camp. You know what I mean? You can fail safely, as they say. So both of them are exciting. Both of them I love. You know what I mean? But they're two definitely different dynamics. They feel very different. But when you put a lot of the groundwork in outside of camp goes a lot smoother, I find.
Well, I just want to ask you about tactics, because we're on this conversation now and we might go into it. Let's say you're preparing for a fight. Do you have a set game plan that you go in and you try to implement this? And let's say you have done that. Do you have a game plan B, C, and D that if it doesn't go right, to do that? You answer yes, but some people are I talk to them, they go, look, you can't have a game plan because you never know what your opponent is going to do. Are you one of those people? You feel like you are one of those people who, if this doesn't go right, I can do this.
Yeah, look, you kind of have to have a contingency plan in my mind. I remember having a fight before and I didn't game plan. I didn't even really study my opponent. I was kind of just giving the advice of just go with the flow. And I felt so lost in there. It was a brutal performance. But on the same wavelength, you can overdo it too. My last opponents, I took him lightly. He didn't excite me. I seen a couple of different threats that he had, and he done different things. He fought differently. So yeah, you have to have a contingency plan. You have to go in there as the best mixed martial artist you can possibly be, because shit can hit the fan very quickly in there. You know what I mean? You break a hand, you break a toe, God knows what happens, or the guy goes out southpaw if you're training orthodox, versus an orthodox. So yeah, there has to be a game plan, but you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to kind of overcome that as well.
How hard is that to adapt in fight? Because at least, you can have a contingency plan outside. Let's say, okay, plan A is to box. If that doesn't go well, maybe to wrestle. If that doesn't go well, pull guard, or, whatever it might be. But in fight itself, it must be so much harder to, not only change plan, but to realize you have to change plan. It's easy for us watching outside, or watching on Monday morning, or watching the next day, analysing it and being able to pause it now. But you actually in the fight, getting punched in the head, getting kicked in the leg, getting taken down, to actually realise, I need to change this. It must, obviously, did you learn that over time? Is that something that the corner helps with, or what way do you do it?
Yeah, the corner helps. But looking in there, especially if you're in the training, it's very hard to hear the corner. You have that lovely maybe 30, 40 seconds of information that goes in between rounds, but during a lot of the time it can be hard. And look, we're mixed martial artists. We do everything, so we should be able to adapt. Do you get me? We should be able to be. This should be easy for us to do. Not easy for us to do, but it should be absolutely in our back pocket to be able to adjust. If I'm going in and I'm just going to say, I'm going to box this guy up, well, that's me being very naive, because anything can happen either side of it. If I'm trying to box someone up and I'm on my back, well, that's that game plan done. Have I done my homework in working off my back? Have I done my homework in trying to wrestle this guy? So you got to be good at it all, Sean. It's easy to be adaptable when you put the work in. Let's put it that way.
You're in the phase now where you're probably planning the camp. Can you just tell us, like, how does that work? Like, you're someone who's obviously very detailed in how you pull out the plan, and living in Wexford and traveling to Dublin as well, you kind of have to be. It's your circumstance. Can you just kind of tell us how you do that? Like, is it something that's written from the 1st of May until the 1st of September, or whenever the date is, and every single day what you're going to do, or what way do you work it?
Yeah, what I've tried to do in the last while, I'm doing right now, is I kind of try make a good base for what I'm going to do in camp now. So I have my days that I go open to Dublin. Usually they're on Monday and a Friday. I have a lot of good sparring partners and coaches down here in Wexford, which has been amazing in the last 2 to 3 years. And then I'll just add an extra day in Dublin when we get into camp. So there's no major changes. I'm training twice a day now since I've kind of decided to move up. I have a lot more energy, so it's kind of easy to train twice a day right now. So it won't be that much adapting. It's more sort of thought processes now that are going in. Like, we're trying a lot of new things that, not even new things, but we're refining work that we've been looking at and kind of keeping in our back pocket for a bit too long, that we're going to let loose. I'm doing a lot of wrestling. I'm doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, and a lot of strength work. It's great to be actually lifting again. I didn't really get the chance to do that while I was a little bantam, but now I'm moving up. So, yeah, it's good. But yeah, I like my plans. I like my structure, I like my routine, but I can't see it being too different from now on camp. That's what I'm trying to do.
What was the decision like to move up? Was it you that wanted to move up, or did Bellator offer you the 45, or what was it?
There's about 10 reasons, I suppose. But look, I feel healthier at featherweight. I had a good run at featherweight. The last time I was at featherweight, I was training part-time. I went full-time when COVID happened, and it allowed me to train full-time. And when we were in lockdown, I was like, I fucking love this. I love this whole full-time gig. And I decided that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my primary. I didn't have the choice before, and then I did better contracts, better this, better that. And so it's going to be exciting going back to featherweight, where I've had great fights. I feel like I have a better knockout ratio. I have a better finishing ratio. Health-wise, I'm full of energy. I didn't like how the last cut went. It was brutal, and I don't like what that's doing to my body. Let's put it that way. I'm about longevity and about health, and when you actually look at the numbers and you look at the performances, I'm not really benefiting too much from the cut at bantamweight as I am in featherweight. The strength numbers go down, the performance numbers go down, so I'm better off being the going up to featherweight and just being fitter and healthier and happier there. So it's exciting for me, and I think also stylistically, I'm a fast guy. I use a lot of volume. I use a lot of fitness, and when I go down to bantam, I'm kind of a bit heavier, and I'm not a lay and pray guy. Where is it benefiting me? That kind of way. I'd rather have that oomph. You seen in that last fight, I was 30-second bursts at the end. I felt like that's what I had. I was on a reserve, and I just don't like feeling that way. I don't like feeling I can't give it 100%, and I feel like the move up can really counter that.
Must have been hard though to actually make that decision, considering all the talk was that you were going to fight Ego for the last 2 fights, and we can talk about that in a second, and then maybe Bellator's matchmaking and stuff. Was that a hard decision, considering you were kind of on the verge of maybe getting a ranked opponent and then getting ranked yourself? Yeah,
at the end of the day, I'm not saying goodbye to bantamweight, but I probably am at this point. I don't know. I feel like if I'm making the move to featherweight, I want to commit 100% to it. But yeah, featherweight is exciting me more, and I know the Higo fight that was meant to happen. But to be honest, I kind of feel like if it was to happen, it would have happened by now. I've called for that God knows how many times. I'm kind of sick of calling for it now at this point. And there's exciting fights for me at featherweight. Look at the top 10. You've got Vital fighting Barnell on the same card. My eyes will be on those two guys. There's the featherweight division is exciting for me. But more exciting is how I'm going to feel and perform there. You know what I mean? I'm excited about this. And another thing that I probably didn't mention is that I love martial arts, and bantamweight keeps me off the mat that little more. Featherweight keeps me on the mat more.
I suppose there's kind of a juxtaposition with Bellator that they've given great opportunities to Irish fighters and they've paid them good money over the last few years, but also it feels like there's a few lads that have kind of been like not necessarily held back.
Sorry, for coming in for a school.
That's all right. That's not about it. But like a few fighters, I think you're probably the biggest example, if we're being honest, who've been kind of not necessarily held back, but not given the opportunity to deserve, especially for you at this stage of your career. You've been around for a long time. You're not a lad walking in who hasn't earned it. You've earned it, and then you've had good results as well in the last 6 or 7 fights, beating some good guys. And it feels like you haven't been given that. Like, how does that feel? Because, like, you're getting, as you said, you're getting paid well now. You're on the main card in the Tree Arena and everything like that. But still, it's not that opponent, the ranked opponent you wanted to kind of move your career on. It must be like that kind of juxtaposition must be tough for you, is it?
Yeah, it is. Like at the end of the day, like I know the fights that I want, and I know the fights that I could perform, like that I deserve. Let's put it that way. But I like this fight. I really like this featherweight fight. This guy's on a 12-fight win streak. He's 13-1. He was meant to fight Aaron Pico, so they have a good regard for him. So going in there and snapping that streak, there's no ignoring that. There's absolutely no ignoring that. And I think, yeah, is he a name? Is he a Bellator like name? No, but I think by beating this guy, the guys that know will know, and the casuals will know. You know what I mean? So yeah, getting a top 10 guy that has a name and a number beside his name, more importantly, would be great. But that'll come next. I feel the bantamweight thing. I think there would have been great fights there for me too, but it doesn't seem to be going that way. So let's give Federer a go.
Do you think it might be easier to navigate at featherweight, like maybe not as deep at bantamweight and get into the top 10 a little bit easier, maybe?
Maybe so, but even stylistically, like if you look at if you break them all down, right, break down the top 10s, like it's primarily heavy, boring grapplers at 135, isn't it? You look at 145, it's a very much a mixed bag. You've got good jiu-jitsu guys, you've got really good strikers, you've got guys who mix it well, and add to that my style. I think I match up great with these fighters. You know what I mean? So it is great. Like I said it a couple of times, but like I fought some really good names at featherweight. I fought Daniel Weichel on my debut. While I was training part time, I fought AJ on a couple of weeks' notice. I fought Lahat, who was a good name, and that was going one way until I broke my hands. So like I feel like I can go in there and mix it up with any of them. And this Otto Rodrigues will just be the start. You know what I mean? It's a great fight. It's an exciting fight, and I can't wait to get in there and put my stamp on the division.
Oh, the last time we spoke was at one of the Bellator, or the second last time maybe we spoke was at one of the Bellator media days, and I remember saying it to you, is like, do you need to kind of get the big fights now? Because obviously, you've been around for a long time in your career, and your kind of answer to me was, well, have I gotten any worse? Have I slowed down? And like the obvious answer to that is no. So is this like, you said a couple of times now about going full time. It must be such a difference to go full time like that. For a lot of people at this stage of their career, maybe they are slowing down because they've had so much wear and tear. But for you, the fact that you're training a little bit differently now, a lot of the training, by yourself or hitting pads and things like that, and yourself and John have both talked about that in the past, how you've improved your technique by doing that. Max Holloway's spoken about that before, maybe not even sparring a little bit less, but working on more technique, that the fact that you can go full time now, keep your body in check a little bit easier, it's actually going to give you extra longevity in your career, and going up to 145, I suppose, is something that can do that as well. Do you feel like, in some ways, does it feel like your full time career is only like kind of just getting started?
Yeah, my first fight at full time was against Simone Dana, and that was that knockout. That was actually my last featherweight fight, and then it was all bantam after that. That fight was meant to be bantamweight, but he couldn't make the weight. He took it on at like 4 weeks' notice or something. So it's only since I started at bantamweight I went full time. But like, even though I'm getting older, my injuries have got less. I've improved tenfold technique wise because I'm just able to give more to the game. So rather than having to rush around and get back and do like a long 8-hour day on top of the training for 3 to 4 hours, I'm able to dedicate it to mobility, to physio work, to more endurance work, to strength work. You know what I mean? It's what I've always wanted to do since I was about 5. I wanted to be an athlete. You know what I mean? And it's amazing the last couple of years to be able to live this life, and as a result, I've really leaned into it and improved. And I think when you take away the nonsense of the weight cutting, I think you'll even see a much better version of that.
I was talking to Caelan Lochran last week, and he played a lot of GA when he was young. I was talking to Ian Gary there a few months ago. He played a lot of GA when he was young. I know you played a lot of GA as well. How did it benefit you, like getting into where you are now? But also, like you talked there about working a job while training full time. And obviously, if people don't know about GA, it's an amateur sport, and that's what everyone who plays GA does. Is that kind of a mindset you were in as well? It's like, well, I have to change from an amateur athlete, not even an amateur, but to go professional even in the last few years. But did that base and that kind of grounding help you as well to where you are now? And even like in the days in your career where you had to work?
Yeah, well, like when I was playing. For when I was playing intercounty for Wexford at underage, or when I was playing senior with my club, you do your long hours in college, or you do your long hours on site or in work or whatever it may be. And didn't matter how bollocks you were or tired you were, you had to show up and train. And then you had to do that a few times a week, and then you had to have a match on the weekend. And if you were playing both codes, either hurling and football, and you were playing different age groups, like maybe minor and senior, that's a lot of go on the body. So you just kind of get used to it. You look at, like, say, American wrestling, and they have a huge work ethic, but like, so does GAA. Do you know what I mean? And these guys are playing, like, you especially being a Limerick man, like, the skill level involved in hurling is absolutely breathtaking. So for any Yanks looking at this, make sure you check it out. It's just unbelievable. But like, these guys don't get paid for doing that. Just imagine that. It's unbelievable what they can achieve. But yeah, I think it's a mindset. I remember you and Andrew McGann were talking about me a few years ago and saying about like a tough GAA guy, and like, I like that, but I haven't felt like that tough, gritty GAA guy for the last, since I was at Bantam. I always liked being that little bit smaller and having to try and dig that a little bit deeper. I always felt that featherweight. You know what I mean? At Bantam, I was one of the bigger boys, and that didn't really fit well. You know what I mean, in that way. But the GAA the thing, I think, as you look at those two guys that you mentioned, particularly Ian, look what he's doing. I think definitely serves well. But I think all sports do that. But yeah, the whole, like I mentioned, having to turn up for training, having to turn up for a match, doing both codes, a lot of going in the body, and that just transfers well over to GAA or to MMA.
Yeah, and I like skill acquisition is a thing as well. Obviously, very different skills, but very like applicable in terms of you have to acquire these skills to be so proficient at it that you can play at a high level. And I'm sure it moves over as well. Is skill is just? I want to ask you about Otto as well, but I'm so interested in this sort of like the preparation that you do and the preparation that all fighters do. But I feel like you're very open with it. Like, you watch a lot of boxing and obviously watch a lot of MMA and everything as well. And you see a skill, let's say that you haven't trained massively before. You see someone else do, or you think, okay, I have trained that before, but that's something I need to concentrate on. What do you do at that position? Is it that, like, you go out and you do it yourself? Do you give John a call? Do you give one of your other coaches a call? What, like, is there something like that? Even an example recently that you saw something, I'm going to work on that, and then you implement it in your training?
Yeah, like, so for instance, I'm always studying, right? Like, I'm not a massive fan of like get on my phone for hours on end, but I will be on YouTube for hours on end. So even when I'm putting my daughter to sleep, when she's nodding off, like, I'll be on my phone, I'll be studying fights. And that's why I say I'm studying to her. What I'll do is I'll pick apart a few things. Like, I was studying Ben Askren there quite a while, but going his wrist control. But I was Ricardo Lopez is a boxer, a strawweight boxer, and he used that pendulum step. So, for instance, we've been using that a bit lately. And I'll note the different things that I like to do, and we'll put it into practice, and we'll see how it feels, But it's all about just noting, and we code things like that then as well. Like, we'll call that a particular thing. And then we'll see how it fits. We'll try it out for a few weeks. If we like it, we'll keep it in. If we don't, we'll discard it. We'll keep it in the back pocket, But yeah, it's just always kind of trial and error. like John is my head coach. He's a mentor of mine for years, great friends. But you kind of have to take the bull by the horns when it's your own career too, and figure out these things, because it's kind of the difference. So you go back to GA and team sports, you have a manager there. They're going to tell you how to train, tell you what to do. But when MMA, it's so dynamic. There's so many different aspects of it that kind of have to figure out a lot of stuff by yourself too. You get me? So like, and the beauty about it, like MMA is evolving so fast. So the best things to study is what you just seen on last week's Bellator card or UFC card, because that's as good as it gets. Do you get me? But yeah, constantly studying, constantly noting, constantly putting into practice. That's how we do it.
I remember in the last fight, what's the name of that thing? The Lee Hammond did one in a couple of his fights where, what's it called? You know, you're on the ground. Yeah, did you have a bit of a Berimbolo on the last fight? Or you something like it anyway? Because I remember looking at it.
No.
But your man was on top of you and you like swung the leg around him and like pulled him down at one stage. There was, I don't know. I need to go back and watch it. But I need to go back
and watch it too. Like, you know, that's a perfect example of a game. What we're talking about game planning there. I had him in mount on bottom, and he, like, no offense to Luke, he's a nice guy, but he felt like a child on bottom. And I was like, I could finish this fight here. But because I had game plan, I was so adamant on getting a knockout, I had no interest in going for any arm triangle setup that I was getting in training. I just wanted to knock this fucker out. But that's what I'm saying. That wasn't adaptable. That should be adaptable. Do you get me? But yeah, I can't. I didn't have to watch that fight back myself. I watched it a couple of times. But yeah, look, it's that's how I train. But you know, the next fight is I'm going to try to be a bit more of a mixed martial artist. I feel like I'm doing it each fight. If you go back to like a few fights ago, it was primarily hands. Now I've got a good kicking game in. It's been a while since I've seen my wrestling. I used to be a good wrestler. If you look back to, say, the Tommy McCafferty days, that was when I fought him and those kind of fights, I was primarily a grappler. So next fight would be a good mix of you.
And I think it'll be a good mix too, because you look at Otto Rodrigues and like, he's a funny one because he's been fighting longer than you, and there's many of them around at the moment. I think he made his debut in 2008 or something like that. But he's only had one fight in the last 6 years ish, and that was a very wrestle heavy fight. I was watching last night. It's on Fight Pass, I think, where he literally just kind of took his opponent down 3 times and wrestled him during the whole fight. Is that something like, obviously you're moving up from 135 now against a guy who looked to me to be like big enough at 145 in that, and a heavy wrestler as well. That must be like, as I say, it's a very challenging matchup. And like, if you do beat this guy, the people who've gone and watched him will know it's a very, very good win, but it's a very tough matchup against a very unheralded guy who's never fought in Bellator, you know, who's unranked and all of that. It's about as tough as matchup as you can get for a guy who isn't in the top 10 rankings.
Yeah, but who are you talking to? You know what I mean? It's not the first rodeo. It's not the first time you've said this to me. But yeah, he's a big bugle. He's a good top game. Sometimes his takedowns look really good. Sometimes they look very sloppy. But look at the guys he's fighting. These you know, stiff guys have very poor footwork. You know, I feel like that I can put a good game plan in place, but you know, if it goes down to the ground, I'm very dangerous there too, and it's about trusting that part of my game too, as well. You know, and you know, I feel like I could easily put him on his ass as well and do a lot of damage there too. So look, Otto Rodrigues, what I like about it is he's a 12-fight win streak. That my mouth watered when I seen that. You know, I can't wait to snap that. That's what I'm going to do. And you know, no matter who you are, if it's your first time tuning in to watch a fight, or you're around a long time like yourself as a journalist or a fan or whatever it may be, you'll know that this is going to be a big win. Matchmakers, they know that it's a big win. At the end of the day, I don't know, like when he's fought last, I know he's fought in LFA last. I didn't actually see that fight. I've seen a couple of his fights. He's good everywhere, but he's primarily good on top. But you know, this excites me. The last fight didn't excite me. Wait till you see the difference in performance. What
do you think is the best way to fight someone like that who's a heavy top wrestler? You know, he likes the Dagestani handcuff, and you know, he loves to kind of go forward. Like, there's the school of thought that you grapple with him, you wrestle with him, you try to win that battle and get out. And there's another school of thought that, you know, you use your jab, you don't let them get near you. You know, you sidestep around them and use your footwork to get away from them. Obviously for you that'd be very applicable, but as you said, you could do it on the ground as well. What do you think is the best way to fight fighters like that?
Look, there's a couple of different ways that you could go out there, and you could stay lateral with your movement. You could try to lead attack heavy rather than crossing the hips with your backhand. Try maybe avoid kicks, or so he can't catch. You could work that way and try outpoint him on the feet, or try clip him as he comes in. Or you could try take him down and put him on his hold. You know what I mean? A couple of different ways of doing it, but again, it excites me. There's so many options there to go out and try to beat a guy of that caliber. So again, we don't know what he's been up to. It's been a while since he fought. He could come out and he could be, after training karate for the last 2 years, doubtful. You usually go back to what you do better, So he will be trying to take me down. And when he gets a couple of snappy jabs in the nose, he'll trying even harder, And look, I'm not going to be naive to say that we're not going to end up there. We probably are, and I'm going to welcome that. I'm very dangerous off my back. I'm doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, and it's about time I really committed to that in the cage, because I'm a nightmare on the mats on a weekly basis. So, but I do love a knockout. I do love the striking game too, but I'm a mixed martial arts. I'm not a kickboxer. So there's plenty of ways of beating this guy, but we'll see. We'll see how this our training goes and how I feel on that night.
I can't wait for it. It's going to be great. Another great night for Irish MMA. The last thing I wanted to kind of ask you about is, you're a very proud Irishman, and it's a great time for Irish MMA at the moment. Obviously, the big Bellator card is coming up, but 3 Cage Warriors champions, the likes of yourself and Sinead and Peter Queally and Liam McCourt and everyone else doing well, and, Kiefer maybe getting into the UFC and Lee Hammond and all the rest of them. It must be, for someone, you're one of the last ones who was there during the last kind of come up, and during this one as well. Maybe yourself and Peter Queally might be the only 2 people kind of still there, and there's obviously a few of the people still training, and Conor as well, I suppose. And I watched the Conor documentary last night, and kind of saw how proud he is to be Irish, and obviously he sponsors you as well now and things like that as well. How great must it be to be like part of another kind of come up in Irish MMA, and to be there, in the main card of an Irish card as well, with just so much kind of hype around Irish MMA, and like warranted hype as well, because there's so many great fighters. It must be a joy to be part of that, like as someone who was training when MMA was unheralded in the country.
It's unbelievable. Irish MMA, like since those early days, since especially Conor, broke through that ceiling, it's been unbelievable. But we did kind of see like a dip of not performances or fighters, but a lot of lads just not getting their recognition or whatever it may be. But now we're in a really good spot. Bellator have a lot of us signed, huge promotion. That card in the 3 Arena is the card of the year anywhere in the world, in my opinion. If you're in attendance, you just don't argue with that. It's unbelievable. There's a lot of other guys that are doing really well that are on the fringes of the UFC, that are on the fringes of Bellator too, that I feel like that should be getting a call up very soon too. So it's a super exciting time. You look at you look at say Sinead, you look at Leah, you look at different people. Like we're all getting closer to belts as well, to bring in more world titles. I think it's just only a matter of time. So yeah, it was exciting back then. It's exciting now, but onwards and upwards, and it just seems like the talent is still coming through from even more, at clubs and areas. So it's super exciting time.
And as someone as well, I suppose, who's, from Wexford but training in Dublin, the fact that, there's people from Tyrone, there's people from Waterford, Wexford, Cork, everywhere doing it in all different counties. It's brilliant as well. And, obviously MMA is going, everything's Dublin centralised in this country, but the fact that there's people come from everywhere else, it's great as well. And what's always great as well, when you're at your fight, you see all the Wexford people in the crowd, and it's always one of the biggest pops, and it's absolutely great to see that as well. And it's, we get a bit of that GA in it as well, I suppose, where we have
That's great. Yeah, look at that. It's it's funny because I suppose it's sport in general, but in Ireland I feel like even more so that if Kilkenny are playing Wexford, they fucking hate each other. Do you know what I mean? Which is mental, because the Kilkenny people are some of the nicest I've ever met. But when you're there on the night, if you're from Kilkenny, Wicklow, Limerick, Galway, wherever, if there's someone bringing a tricolour, everybody's getting behind them. It's amazing to see, but especially amazing to see in this sport, because go back a decade ago or a little bit more, it wasn't a sport. It wasn't over here anyway. We were, cutting our teeth in GAA halls and getting paid nothing for it. And now the landscape is so different, and it's great to see. And it's very exciting for me, being a guy who's been there since the start, but it must be so exciting to see, or for like a kid who's 13, 14, 15 getting into this sport, who love it just as much as I did when I found it when I was 21 or 2, because now they have a clear path, clear direction if they work hard where they can end up. When we were first doing it, and I looked at that Connor documentary yesterday myself, and I remember even going back and him saying that he's going to have enough money for his kids to be looked after. Money wasn't even there in the sport. We still believed it, which was fucking fascinating. And I always think about Aisling Daly as well, who was working as hard, if not harder, than all the rest of us when there wasn't a women's division in the UFC, So it's just amazing to see it, because there was no roadmap, and now there really is because of these guys.
It's honestly, it's hard for me to stay unbiased, because I'm so happy for everyone coming up. It's absolutely brilliant. It's brilliant for me as well, because I can talk about all of you, and it's a joy to do it. And it's brilliant. I lied. Last question, right? And any insight on what the Walkout song is going to be? I have two options for you. Here you go. And I want to know which is the better song, right? Bula Vogue or Kelly the Boy from Killaan? Which one of them? I feel like one of them would be a great choice now here in Dublin.
I love Kelly, but I came out to Kelly the Boy from Killaan before. Yeah. But Bula Vogue is my favourite song of all time. Two good choices there, sir. They really are. There's Brian Roebuck has a beautiful version of Bula Vogue I'd love to come out to. But when I was a child, I was an okay singer, believe it or not, Sean, back in the day.
Yeah, go on, give us a bit.
I was always taken out of class to go and sing to like the other classes, or if there was a fucking talent show or bullshit like that. But it was always Bula Vogue. It was always Bula Vogue I sang, funnily enough. It's kind of how I ended up getting so interested in the 79 Day Rebellion. And my mother and her sisters used to sing rebel songs of PJ McCall. Actually wrote both of those songs, and he used to live in a really small cottage about 200 yards from 500 yards from my home place. So there's a good history there of that. Now I can't sing for shit though. So
I don't believe you. I look after the win. We'll get it in September.
I might do a Manny Pacquiao, and he actually sings his own walkouts, doesn't he? I might do that for the next time.
Yeah, I'd love it. Bring the microphone out with you. Here's the good one. My grandfather was Eamon de Valera's second cousin. So there you go.
No way.
No, yeah.
He was on the wrong side, was he?
Yeah, well, we won't talk about that. They were all on the right side at one stage, but sure, look at right. We leave it there, Brian. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to September now. It should be a great fight and another great night for Wexford and Irish MMA as well. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sean. Great to talk to you again, lad.
No worries. So bad.